Hi everybody, Jerry Verwey here, Science Consultant at Kent ISD, and I've been receiving some similar inquiries about the same particular 4th grade Next Generation Science Standard. So I thought I would take a moment to make this short video to try to shed some light on that standard. That standard is 4th grade standard Life Science 1-2. Now, if we look at that standard, it reads, use a model to describe that animals receive different types of information through their senses, process the information in their brain, and respond to the information in different ways. So what I'm going to do through the course of this video is break that standard down into two pieces. The first piece would be the first 3 words where it says use a model, and that will describe what our students are doing, and then the rest of that standard will explain what they're learning. So let's first take a moment to stop and think about what they're doing. So use a model. Now, a lot of you are already familiar with the fact that Next Generation Science Standards are based on the National Research Council's framework, and that describes what it means to be proficient in science. And it reminds us that science should be viewed as this knowledge of evidence-based model and theory building that's extending our students' knowledge. And so in order to meet this end, we've incorporated 3 different dimensions into each standard. And those dimensions are listed there on the screen. You have your science and engineering practices, there's 8 of those. There's the 7 cross-cutting concepts, and there's the 4 disciplinary core ideas, or our content. This first dimension, scientific and engineering practices, incorporates 8 different practices, as I mentioned. Developing and using models is one of those practices, and if you recall, that was specifically stated in the first part of our standard. Use a model. So what we're going to do is we're going to move ahead and look at what does it mean to use a model, and specifically how does it look in this standard here. Now, many times I've had teachers who they understand the gist of what a model is, but they don't have any idea for how to actually use it in their classroom. So first of all, we understand that it's important to use because whether it's science or it's engineering, models help us explain things. And that can be taken in many different ways. A model can be any of these forms that's listed on the screen. You could do a diagram, these could be drawings, replicas of a process or an item, mathematical representations, analogies, or even computer simulations. All of those are acceptable forms of models, and there's more than just these. This is not an exhaustive list. But essentially what we'll want to do is either through the use of existing models or through our students creating new models, within the standard, tying in how information is processed through the senses using these models. Now, I have an example here, a personal example from when I was a small child for how models are beneficial. My grandpa, in an effort to talk to me about his days in the Navy during World War II, bought this toy replica of the battleship he served on, the USS New Jersey. With this model in his hand, he was better able to describe where he was in the ship and how things worked. Well, this same idea is applied here in the standard. Your students can either create a model or manipulate an existing one to explore how an animal receives, processes, and responds to sensory information. For example, students could work with a diagram of the eye that illustrates how light enters the eye for a person to see an object. Or students could create an analogy for how nerve impulses travel from the surface of the skin when touched to the brain. These simple models both describe the phenomenon that's being observed and test cause and effect relationships concerning the functioning of these systems. A student could use these models to test interactions concerning the functioning of these natural systems. Now, that takes us to the second part of the standard. So we understand that we're going to be using a model. Whether our students make that model or it's a model we provide them, it doesn't matter. But with this model, they're going to investigate how animals receive different types of information through their senses, process that, and then respond to that information in different ways. Now, this standard is based on disciplinary core idea LS1.D, information processing. Now, it also builds upon standards from kindergarten through 2nd grade as well in the disciplinary core ideas. If we refer to Appendix E in the Next Generation Science Standards and look specifically down here at LS1.D, we can see the progression of the disciplinary core idea of information processing from kindergarten through to 4th grade, where we are with this particular standard. In kindergarten through 2nd grade, students explored how animals sense and communicate information and respond to inputs with behaviors that help them grow and survive. Now, for grades 3 through 5, students are exploring how different sense receptors are specialized for particular kinds of information and how animals use their perceptions and memories to guide their actions. So, moving forward, we need to understand what senses are. And it would be good just to review the senses not only for your students, but for yourself as well. To remember that we're talking about touch, smell, hearing, sight, those sorts of things. And how does our body have structures that can respond to those things? And then how do those structures allow our information to reach the brain so that we can adequately reply to those impulses? Now, a couple of examples. For one, you could have your students focus on receptors in the eye and how they respond to light. You could explore how special cells in the eye respond to different levels of light and which are responsible for the interpretation of colors. Or perhaps you could explore the physiology of the ear with the model and explore how it detects sound waves. These would be just a couple of examples of how sense receptors are specialized for particular information. Another aspect of the standard is to explore how animals use their perceptions and memories to guide their actions. I use myself as an example for this. When the receptors in my eyes detect anything that looks like a snake, my perception of this, along with my memories of previous encounters with snakes trying to bite me, elicits the same response. I basically jump and run away. To this day, when I'm out on a run and I see a stick on the ground that I perceive to be a snake, I jump and try to avoid it because of the shot of adrenaline that's pushed through my body. Now, applying this to the actual standard, another great model would be these flip books. Flip books are like those pieces of paper that you stapled together in elementary school and that you drew pictures on the edge of each page so that you could flip through it and the images appeared to move. And although you and your students know the images are not actually moving in the sense that they appear, your brain still perceives the concept of what we call animation. This phenomenon is referred to as persistence of vision. When the light receptors in your brain see each image, there's this brief resetting period that occurs in each receptor as the information is being sent to your brain. These brief resetting periods are covered up by these lingering after images, which which allow you to remember what you saw until your receptors in your eye reset and you see the next image. But of course, this all happens in a fraction of a second, and so you perceive all the sensory information is fluid and you detect it as animation. So sounds like you have an opportunity here to maybe utilize flipbooks in your classroom, where you could have your students create flipbooks, and you could do this too, watch them animate the image, and then look at how is this a model for understanding how the brain interprets what the eye is seeing. So again, this was standard 4LS1-2. Use a model to describe that animals receive different types of information through their senses, process that information in their brain, and respond to information in different ways.